Yes, Millie, then cases.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my concern from what you've just said that as National Assembly, we are not surrogating, we are defending.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, when you are always under attack, sometimes attack is the best defense. Mr. Speaker, if the COG is actually surrogating somebody else to take away work that helps in our constituencies, and yet, very clearly, COG under the 4th schedule have no constitutional mandate to give bursaries. But because we know it helps people, we are closing our ears and our eyes to the fact that what they're doing is actually unconstitutional. So instead of defending, why don't we also attack? So that we are all fair. The National Assembly has very many brilliant minds. But I don't know, like Paul says in the Bible, you foolish Galatians, who bewitched you? Foolish parliamentarians, who bewitched you? Why are we allowing people to always attack Parliament? When we also have brains, we can also attack in courts. If they want to take away care that helps our people, then let us go to the Constitution. ECD, there is no bursary for ECD. The constitutional mandate for governors are very clear. On education, ECD. I don't know any child that pays bursary for ECD. We only keep quiet because we know it helps our people. But if you want to bring the war on, bring it on. We will meet you halfway.
Cases.
I'm here. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. My concern, Mr. Speaker, is drawn from continuous, systematic micromanaging of treasury issues on matters that touches our people directly on the ground. As we're even looking at the issues now that the treasury is deliberate on reducing the NGCDF and the budget policy statement for financial year 25-26, I'm aware that there is stern instructions that has been given to the regional managers or regional directors for KERA not to award letters to the recent publicized notices inviting contractors to undertake the works. They did deliberate invite bids. They have done the process. They have completed procurement process. But now they have been instructed not to issue award letters for works to start just because somebody somewhere want to reduce or want to control releases. Whereas we are aware the question of the money in question is around 10 billion. All some of the money are more than the 10 billion. What is happening on the awarded jobs already? It looks like somebody somewhere wants to utilize this particular situation to perpetrate their interest in not allowing money or funds to be utilized on the ground for service delivery. Mr. Speaker, I think this one, we have to look at beyond this. There are some people even inside Treasury that they want to play games with this particular situation. It is not the issue of the court, but they have a direct interest in manipulating the services to the people, especially those that are being oversighted direct to the constituency level. It looks like even these issues of Council of Governors are being facilitated by people also on the other side, so that they confuse service delivery, where people of Kenya have been receiving services directly on the constituency level by virtue of supervision and oversight that is being provided for at that level. I think, Mr. Speaker, it is time to call a spade a spade. Somebody somewhere must take responsibility on this. Thank you.
The Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Maybe just to inform the House and jog your memories a bit, you know we came from a very long recess. Last year, we published the County Additional Allocations Bill of 2024-2025, which went to the Senate and they put this RMLF money, road maintenance levy fund money, in that bill. We were to go into mediation, and unfortunately that mediation process lapsed at the end of the last session. Those who were here last week, we just republished, and I think we've already read for the first time, that bill republished without the RMLF money in the bill. And we will process it without RMLF, because that is the right thing to do. And probably is a good time to speak to our colleagues in the other house that many counties I had an engagement with two governors, and let me not mention their names here, Honorable Speaker, but they were telling me in one of them in their county, they have money for KUSIP going to about 1.1 billion shillings that they cannot access because some other governors want to fight over RMLF. And they were telling me in their county, RMLF, they would only get 113 million. And the governor was asking me, what sense is there to fight over 113 million and lose for my county money going especially to the most critical elements like healthcare, provision of water, and even roads, urban roads in towns that are helping that county generate additional revenue to the tune of 1.1 billion shillings. Honorable Speaker, there are few governors, very few of them, who are hinging on this thing of RMLF. Honorable Speaker, you remember even when we were debating this bill last year, we reminded them that back in 2021, when we had the same stalemate, the national government in one instance added a whopping 53 billion shillings to the division of revenue bill for them to be able to cater for roads in counties, Honorable Speaker. Ask Kenyans anywhere in this country where they see governors doing roads. And I'm not asking members of parliament, I'm asking Kenyans. Kenyans can tell us which governors are doing any roads anywhere. If anything, Honorable Speaker, what happens is that the roads that are being maintained by KERA, governors then duplicate the same roads so that they loot from public coffers, Honorable Speaker. And we must call out this corruption for what it is, because it is nothing other than blatant corruption in the counties, Honorable Speaker. And they are not fighting for this money because they intend to maintain any road. In my constituency, Honorable Speaker, I have not a single road that I can show that the county government of Kiambu that has maintained in the last 3 years. None. And if you speak to constituents around the country, they will tell you the same. Honorable Speaker, read the Comptroller of Budget reports. How many counties are devoting money to development? Many are busy devoting money to freebies, things that are politically expedient and that are exciting to the masses, but not those sustainable things that members of parliament ensure through proper oversight of RMLF that KERA and KURA are actually maintaining roads in our counties and constituencies, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have pleaded with the executive through the office of the Deputy President, who is the chairperson of IBEC, to call to order through IBEC the Council of Governors. First, to withdraw that case in court, because there is absolutely no reason why 10 billion shillings would be lying idle at a time when we are about to get into the short rains, and Kenyans will be crying about roads that they cannot access their farms and get their farm produce to markets because governors are holding money through a court process, Honorable Speaker. We are pleading, and we have asked the Deputy President through IBEC to speak to the Council of Governors to first withdraw that case. But also, as a House, we will process the additional county allocations bill without RMLF. And let me tell them, it will never pass through the floor of this House. Let me not talk about courts. This House, this floor, RMLF is a live wire that you will never touch. And we will consult with the leadership in the Senate so that no senator even imagines that they can amend that bill when it goes to them to reintroduce RMLF. Because it will end up in another stalemate, a mediation process that we can tell them even before it starts, it will go nowhere. leave RMLF money, let Kera and Kura maintain the roads they maintain. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, speaking to the executive and the minister in charge of roads and infrastructure, and probably together with the Council of Governors, it is high time now that we properly reclassified all our roads. Proper reclassification. I have seen in some countries, Honorable Speaker, if you go to South Africa, you see a road marked with numerals and alphanumeric coding that clearly tells members of the public that this is a county road, this is a municipal road, this is a national government road. We must get to that level where the Ministry of Roads and Infrastructure does proper classification of roads such that if we have national government roads class A, let us know this is NGA, National Government Class A. If we have a county government road, let it be CG Class D or Class A or Class B, so that even Kenyans, and name those roads, so that also these members of parliament are not bashed by their constituents, because we are the ones constituents are close to. They keep bashing members of parliament over roads that do not concern members of parliament, because they have no budgets for them. And the governors who have money for maintaining these roads are busy buying chicks, some buy maize flour, some buy dengue to give as freebies to constituents to excite people for political expediency. It is high time they also called out, and Kenyans must begin reading those Comptroller of Budget reports to see that counties are not devoting money to development. And that is why now we can't satisfy the insatiable greed for more money to steal. We can't satisfy their greed, honestly. We must maintain our position to offer meaningful oversight over Kera, Kura, and Kenha to deliver on maintenance and construction of roads. Because, you know, again, they assume that this money is managed by members of parliament. None of these 290 members of parliament representing constituencies, or even the 47 women reps, or even the nominated 12 members, manage this money. This money is managed through the regional offices of Kera, under the Director General of Kera and Kura. Members of parliament come nowhere near it. Members of parliament don't even sit in the procurement committees. Our only interest is proper and meaningful oversight for delivery of services to the Kenyan people. The others are only bothered about what they will steal. They want to steal from hospitals. They have looted hospitals. They have looted our water projects. They now are after roads. Honestly, who will satisfy their insatiable greed, Mr. Speaker? We cannot, and we will not satisfy by processing that additional county allocations bill with RMLF included. I hope my leader of majority in the Senate has heard me. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to add a few things to what the majority leader said. Mr. Speaker, this issue of RMLF has been on this floor now for some time, even since last Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what I have come to realize, there is a systematic program going on in this country to disconnect members of this House from the public completely. Mr. Speaker, I don't know where that plan is hatched, Mr. Speaker, whether it is in the executive or in the judiciary or somewhere. Mr. Speaker, there is a serious plan to disconnect members of parliament, especially members of the National Assembly, from the public, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, people tell you that it is not your work to bring development to the people. If I cannot bring development to my people, what is the constitutional requirement of representation? You represent people so that you can speak on their behalf on the floor of the House to get resources to the public, Mr. Speaker, if I understand it well. Mr. Speaker, this is something that this House will not accept. Mr. Speaker, look at what's happening in the counties. We are not against devolution. We completely support devolution, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, we have to reanalyze since the last 10 or 12 years whether devolution has worked for this country. The only things we see in devolution is conferences every year that shows us beans, ndengu, carrots, cucumber, cassavas grown in our areas, Mr. Speaker. Those things have been happening since independence. My grandmother has been growing cassava since Kenya became independent, Mr. Speaker. That's what you are being shown in devolution conferences. There is nothing serious that has happened in terms of devolution since devolution came into place, Mr. Speaker. Truth must be said. We must be truthful to the people, Mr. Speaker. Sure. Look at the amount of money that has been devolved in this country. Trillions of shillings since devolution came into place. Nothing to show for it. Nothing, completely nothing, Mr. Speaker. Let's be honest to Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, we don't want to describe them as devolved corruption. But people are preoccupied. Mr. Speaker, can we have order here? People are preoccupied with the little money that has been devolved through NGCDF, little money that has been devolved to the constituencies through RMLF, and people don't take note of the billions of shillings that are being devolved every financial year, Mr. Speaker. Counties are getting their money. They are never in arrears. Even if they're in arrears, it's 1 month, 2 months, in the end the money goes down to the ground. There are counties that are holding billions of shillings in their central bank accounts. I was reading in the newspaper the other day that there are counties that have not spent 48 billion shillings, Mr. Speaker. They are lying idle in their account. And they are still demanding for more money. They're saying, oh, the national government has not devolved. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, these people who are calling themselves here Nairobi, Kera and Kura, these people must know that these are organs of national government. They are not part of county government. They are oversighted by this house. This Director General of Kera, Mr. Speaker, this man is a joker. I can tell you for truth. He thinks that he is supposed to report to counties. Which governor oversights him? Which county government oversights him? That man must be dragged here to this house under full committee of the full house, Mr. Speaker. And he must be told in no certain terms that he is supposed to report and to the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. This is a man who thinks that he is supposed to work with county government. Which county government is giving him money? Mr. Speaker, you can go around to every constituency today, and we'll take you around as a speaker. The roads that are maintained by constituency development, by this RMF through the constituency, are known. In every constituency, they're not even more than 4 or 5. Majority of the roads are classified as county roads, and they're in pathetic condition, all of them. And they're asking for the RLMF for the constituency. The ones for the constituency are well maintained. Actually, the national government is trying its best to even tarmac majority of the county roads. Mr. Speaker, we cannot take this thing anymore lying down. We will put our foot down. We are tired of these shenanigans of counties and judiciary all the time saying CDF is unconstitutional, and these people are enjoying their monies. They are not delivering any services to the public, and the people who are supposed to do that work are being curtailed, Mr. Speaker. This matter must come to an end, and we are going to pass, as the majority leader said, the county revenue allocation, the extra money we are giving them through the bill that has been brought here, without RLMF. If they don't want money, the bill will get stuck here for good. You can continue with the one that you have been given at the beginning of the year. And I want to tell the Council of Governors, please, don't joke with members of Parliament. They have been elected just like the way you have been elected. You have votes. We got votes the same way you got votes. Some of you, we just go through waves. You know, there are people who are saying, when the new constitution was being formulated, governors should have been appointed job. There are people who are saying that. Yes. We can amend the constitution, if need be. So, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, we are saying, let us respect everyone's work as enshrined in the constitution and the laws, Mr. Speaker, and we must make sure that we are not supposed to be made like we are not supposed to bring any development to our constituency. A governor told me, Mr. Speaker, he told me on my face that, you know, your work is representation and oversight. You're just to go and make noise in Parliament. That is all. That's your work. You don't have any other work. I told him, my friend, when we are going to do the division of revenue bill, we will give you very little money if you talk like that. That's when you'll realize what power is, as the constitution, given to the National Assembly. So, Mr. Speaker, we support the devolution, but the county, what is this thing called? The Council of Governors. This amorphous thing first. It's not in the constitution. I don't know, it's in the County Government Act or something, Mr. Speaker, which we can repeal even that one. They must respect members of parliament henceforth. And that is not anything we are begging for. Mr. Speaker, it's an order, and we will stand firm to make sure that our constituency gets development as required by law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Your leaders have spoken. Can we end there and go to some other business? Yes. Yes. Yes, Caroli, what is it?
Much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I'll add on to what Honorable Millie had said, taking the war to them. Honorable Speaker, 12 years ago when we were writing the new constitution, the original proposal was to have 14 counties plus Nairobi. There were supposed to be only 15. We ended up with 47. During this period, we've seen what is happening. Most of the counties, as a matter of fact, have nothing to show for. You go to counties, what the governors do are cultural festivals. In a year, there'll be 6, 7 festivals. You don't even know which one you are at. There'll be this, there'll be that. County governments are building posho mills, others are building rice mills, things that even the central government is already divesting from. Mr. Speaker, I belong to a small group which is already doing a study whether the structure that we have for devolution is sustainable for Kenya. And the preliminary conclusion is that it is not. As a matter of fact, what would be more sustainable is to protect devolution and devolved funds, but to channel them through constituencies. And what that would mean, I'll give an example. Turkana, that gets about 11, 12 billion per year with 6 constituencies, each constituency for direct development would have 2 billion a year. In Suba South, the calculation that we have done, if I was to oversee the constituency for 10 years at the current amount of devolved funds, in 10 years we'll have resolved all the road networks, built hospitals, finished all the schools. We will be talking about new things. So I think the war that we should take to them, building on what Honorable Millie has said, is to relook at the constitution and the structure of devolution and take away the counties and protect the funds, but channel them as development funds directly to the constituencies. Because that is what is working in this country. All the other things are not working. And that is the war that we need to take to them as a house. And probably if this house, on a bipartisanship manner, can come up with a working group to explore this and review, using experts, exactly what we are proposing, we will help this country. Devolution in its current structure is not sustainable, will never work. It's a den of corruption. It's a den of incompetent people. You go to functions, governors have carried truckloads of people praising them. Another group has brought people fighting. I don't know. It's all chaos. It's not working for this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Chepkonga.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to join my colleagues. You know, Honorable Speaker, I want to remind them. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 12. The Bible says, remind them even though they know. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the Council of Governors, even though they know that Article 95 of the Constitution is very clear, and it does not exist anywhere in any other article, Mr. Speaker. And it reads, for the avoidance of doubt, that the National Assembly represents the people of the constituents and special interests of the National Assembly. It says in 2, Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly deliberates on and resolves issues that are of concern to the people. Mr. Speaker, there is no other person in Kenya that has the power to resolve issues that are of concern to the people. It is only this House, Mr. Speaker. Even the courts themselves, I am being reminded by a layman here that the courts are also don't have power to resolve issues that are of concern to the people. Mr. Speaker, you know the other day we increased the RMLF from 18 shillings to 25. And now because we increased that money, they are now salivating. The reason we were doing so, Mr. Speaker, was to resolve issues that are of concern to the people. Mr. Speaker, you know, in the last government, they launched about 10,000 kilometers of roads. And you know, Mr. Speaker, there was no money to pay for those roads. And it is necessary that the RMLF was increased for purposes of paying off the outstanding bills with regard to those roads that have been constructed in those counties, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, for someone to come and say that they are holding 10 billion shillings because they are salivating for the 7 or 8 shillings that was increased is completely unfair and constitutional, Mr. Speaker. You know, people just read Article 95 and they just go to sleep. Article 95 says members of parliament have 4 roles: oversight, budgeting, representation, and legislation. Mr. Speaker, we budget. There is no one else under the sun in Kenya who has the role of budgeting of the resources of this country, which Kenyans pay as taxes, Mr. Speaker. In fact, the Senate or any other body cannot originate a money bill. It can only be originated from this house. That is the reason why Kara could not be passed until this house agrees. Mr. Speaker, we are not begging the Council of Governors. We want to ask them to withdraw that bill so that they can be able to get their money, which is more than the 10 billion shillings, Mr. Speaker. As members have just said, I also come from a constituency. I have never seen any Council of Governors repairing roads in Ainabkoi or maintaining them, Mr. Speaker. In fact, most of the time we are asked, please assist us, we know this is not your road. And we go and plead with the Director General of Kera, please, could you assist these people of Ainabkoi who have a problem with this road? And you know, Mr. Speaker, it is not a Kera road, it is a county road, Mr. Speaker. And we can give so many of them, there are plethora of roads that have been repaired by Kera that has nothing to do with what has been apportioned to them. And so, Mr. Speaker, we must stand very firm. In fact, we have now learned something, Mr. Speaker, that we can use the Sakaja route to stop some people from doing some funny things. No, I'm not saying it's a Sakaja route. No. The Sakaja route, Mr. Speaker, is
that is criminal conduct.
It is a very criminal conduct.
Justify
but we are saying... Well,
that is criminal conduct.
But we are saying, Mr. Speaker, we have just learned bad habits recently.
There is no justification for that.
I agree with you, Mr. Speaker. Yes. There's no justification at all. Yes. For people to pour cabbage on people's gates. Yes. You know, NEMA must in fact take action. That's what the majority leader is saying. Mr. Speaker, we are saying...
Are you saying, Jebkonga, if KPLC demands power payment from you, you go and cut down their polls?
No, Mr. Speaker, that's what I'm saying. It is absolutely criminal. It's a criminal enterprise. They are involved in some criminality, Mr. Speaker. Yes. And it is that we don't have any...
No country will condone that kind of criminal behavior.
Yeah, but we would like to ask the Senate to call to order Senator Sakaja for dumping waste on KPLC, Mr. Speaker. That is conduct unbecoming. And the reason why people see us this way, Mr. Speaker, is because we are gentlemen and gentlewomen, and we like to follow the law. But we should not be taken like we have no teeth, Mr. Speaker. We can fight.
There are no gentlewomen, they are ladies.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Speaker. They are gentle ladies. No, it's just that one of them was being told she was not properly dressed yesterday.
Okay, finish up.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Honourable members, I'll close with Otienda Amolo, then Kainan, then GK. Only those, then we go to the next.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Exercise and brevity.
Mr. Speaker, first is information to the members. As the members are aware, we are in court on the NGCDF matter.
Yes.
And it's currently before the Court of Appeal. And just next week, on 6th of March, we are appearing for directions. As we had indicated to the members, the court, we are fast-tracking the hearing. But that notwithstanding, it does not give anyone any authority to reduce anything. But the beauty with it, ultimately, members, is that we are the ones with the power. The executive can only make proposals. So it is within us to change what we need to change. And I agree with the ruling with the Speaker earlier that we must proceed as a matter of necessity. Secondly, on the RMLF matter, it is very interesting, Mr. Speaker, that the very people who are with us in court, who challenge the NG-CDF matter every day, who litigate up to the Supreme Court and come back and restart again, have never found it necessary to challenge any of the exercise of authority by the counties, including the bursaries. Strictly speaking, the county governors are supposed to deal with ECD and TVCs. Now, TVCs, you end up with students coming to the members of parliament to support them, even the institutions themselves. One would have thought that the governors would actually concentrate on the areas of their jurisdiction before they spill over. But many of us have usually not complained because in most of our constituencies, students are needy. So that even with all that, you still find other students who don't get it. But when then the same governors want to encroach into our area, then it calls for us to demonstrate that our power is not just latent, it is potent. And in that respect, Mr. Speaker, I think that as we go along, and we don't have to wait for your direction on this, we as members will be taking on these governors on many of these things, in court and outside court, in matters we filed and those ones filed by others, so that we can get what we call an equilibrium of power. So that people understand that actually this is where the power lies. It does not lie in courts, it does not lie in the executive, it lies here. Courts can interpret the law anytime, and they can interpret our actions anytime, but ultimately, they cannot stop us from making legislation however we want. Courts cannot stop us from exercising our powers in terms of the budget however we want. Let's send a caution to the governors that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Odhiambo, for order. Thank you, Odhiambo, for finally agreeing with the Speaker that power lies here and not elsewhere. Kainan?
Mr. Speaker, allow me to join this debate. Mr. Speaker, this debate has two aspects, and I'm glad that today the leader of majority and the leader of minority have agreed on one thing, that this house has been reduced to a house of lamentations, Mr. Speaker. This August House, Mr. Speaker, once upon a time was an appendage of the executive. We freed ourselves, and you know it, how it used to be. But suddenly again, we are going back to the same, Mr. Speaker. I'm told the chairman of transport is here, Mr. Speaker. When an MD of a national government agency, without any due regard, without any consultation, just by a circular, negates everything that this house has passed, Mr. Speaker, then what is the implication? The implication is we are no longer the August House that we used to be. When the MD of Kera sits down, and yet we have an oversight committee called the Transport Committee. When the MD for Kura sits down, and yet we have a committee here, and negates what we have passed, Mr. Speaker, that has gone through all the stages, the only inference that you can make is this is no longer the August House. I agree with what the leader of majority has said, with the leader of majority and the leader of minority. Look, under the current constitution, and for those of us who have been part of this, we had certain considerations. Mr. Speaker, you know how we included devolution in the current constitution. You know how we captured equalization in the current constitution. CDF, all those now are floating in the air. The governors have gone to court to make sure equalization doesn't work. It's no longer functioning. The governors have gone to court to make sure NCDF is not working. The governors have gone to court to make sure RMLF is not working. The next thing they are saying is members of parliament have no role in the governance of the Republic of Kenya. Is that where you want to be? Is that where you want to be? That is where we are. To the extent that some of them are going public to say members of parliament have no role in the county affairs. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge this. I want to urge colleagues. There comes a time when people must be ready to make hard decisions. We need to do both summative and formative evaluation of all the resources that have devolved since the promulgation of the current constitution, so that we allow Kenyans to see the value of the billions and the trillions we have devolved, Mr. Speaker, as the true representative of the people, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, we'll sit here, lament, go to court. I'm glad what the Honorable Odhiambo has said. But that's the court. What are we doing in the house here? The budget-making process is in our hands, Mr. Speaker. We are not using it. The oversight process is in our hands. We are not using it. The legislative power is in our hands. We are not using it, Mr. Speaker. Then what are we saying? Mr. Speaker, this group, and this group, Mr. Speaker, comprising of the Council of Governors, slowly they have taken over. One time, they blackmail the members of parliament. The other time, they blackmail the senators. They blackmail the executive. Everybody's been blackmailed. Under our watch, what are we going to do? This is what I want to suggest. We need to critically dissect the current constitution and address all the areas, the gray areas, Mr. Speaker, that ought to have added value to the well-being of the people we represent. If we do both summative and formative evaluation, Mr. Speaker, you'll realize the billions that have gone. I had the privilege of representing 2 constituencies, Mr. Speaker, and I am ready to take all of you for a benchmarking visit to Wajir West and Eldas and see what the national government has done over the last 10 years and what the county government has done over the last 10 years, and you'll be in a position to compare and appreciate that our constituencies still survive on budgetary supports from the national government.
Thank you.
Yet, billions are devolved. My conclusion is this. Chairman Transport, if you are here, we cannot be under the threat of a Mayor MD of Kera. He has issued circulars, many circulars. In fact, Mr. Speaker, some of these MDs, because we have failed to bite, we have failed to act. I want to, yesterday in the House Business Committee, and I want my colleagues, the leader of majority and the leader of minority to hear this. This is the first time, and I want all the members to hear this, in the history of NCDF, from July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, our proposals are yet to be approved. What are these other funds you are looking for? Where are your CDF proposals? You are being duped to ask to facilitate the bursary allocations. Where is the money?
Thank you.
Even the basic is not there. So chairman, former chairman of NCDF, I've been running after the CEO and the management of NCDF board. Where are the approvals? Where are the approvals for the fund managers to actualize? The approvals have not been done. What are we saying? Whose mistake is it? It's our mistake. That approval ought to have been in place by December so that we roll out the project. Yes. So we're all sitting. Let's stop complaining. Let's not reduce ourselves to House of Lamentation.
GK.
Can we act and bite constitutionally? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
GK.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this debate. Honorable Speaker, I want to remind members that the Act, the KRB Act, has not been amended, or neither has it been suspended. We have an act that stipulates how RMLF funds should be shared. And as long as that act stands, we will not allow anybody to take away any coin, any cent from our allocation, 22 and 10%. The committee that I lead, Honorable Speaker, has taken a position on this matter. We met the Cabinet Secretary yesterday and raised this issue, and he has assured the committee that he will support the position that exists. And this position is in the law, KRB Act. Honorable Speaker, I want to assure members that we will not cede any ground as far as these resources are concerned. We know what happens out there when governors are allowed to implement these resources. We do not see, we are not able to see anything that they do for our people. And Honorable Speaker, this money was set aside to avail to the people of Kenya what we call the common good. Honorable Speaker, we will stand with the people of Kenya and continue to serve them effectively by holding on to these resources.
Yes, Nabi, what is it?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the chairman of the Roads Committee to mislead the House that he is doing anything when we need to know he is the problem?
Chairman.
I think Honorable Speaker, I do not have to respond to that comment because it's he's totally out of order. I have been very consistent in my support for RMLF resources being appropriated through the constituency roads committees. And that is a position we have taken as a committee. Honorable Speaker, I want to once again assure members that we will continue engaging the ministry, the KRB, KERA, to ensure that nothing changes. The status quo remains. And the case that is in court, Honorable Speaker, I'll urge the executive to engage the governors and make sure and ensure that the 10 billion that is held by the courts is released for the purpose of serving our people. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Andrew Nolwach, Nairobi colleagues of yours have asked me to give you an opportunity to say something.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This morning, the 17 members of Parliament met with their regional engineers, and the very same question being discussed in this House was what we are discussing. Honorable Speaker, first, let me confirm that all the tendering for the RMLF Kera roads for Nairobi had been done. Letters expressing intention to award had been issued. And the unique problem that Nairobi constituency has, that unlike our other constituencies, the other 200 and so constituencies, is that we have to do tarmac roads or bitumen roads. Some of those roads are done in a layered form. Some of those roads are done in a sequential manner. So that when we tell the people of Nairobi that you cannot do 5 roads which you are tendered, you can only do 2 roads, on which wards are you going to select? These are the roads that I'm going to do, and which ones? There is a legitimate expectation, and especially when this member of Parliament before this very same House raised this question as to why the ceilings were being brought down from 61 or 62 million to have that amount. That same afternoon, before I had even sat down, that circular had been withdrawn, Honorable Speaker. And so the House went and relaxed that this problem had been sorted, and advert put on the basis of 62 million. How again are we told post the fact, when the tendering has been done and awards already issued, that we can only do 2 roads? Honorable Speaker, I want to summarize by saying this. I am tempted to think that this House does not have the teeth that it claims to be. And I heard Honorable Kipchunga very well. This House must either prove that it is the senior House that it claims to be, because it cannot be that the executive can go and exact upon, the governors, exact upon the executive on the potential or prospective merger of Kera and Kura, whose intention is still the very same, withdrawal of the money that goes to your constituencies. If you haven't seen that, our leadership, and I'm speaking here so that Honorable Ichungwah can hear, when you sit with the executive, what is it that you tell them in terms of the ability to leverage your legislative power to the executive to bear? I think we are a House that is so much ado about nothing, including myself. We either show that we can do this or we go the Karoli way. In the interim, Honorable Speaker, let us summon the CS of roads here even tomorrow and discuss these things, because the members of Parliament for Nairobi constituency, this is where all of you, the 290 of you, come here in between Tuesday and Thursday. Then you run to your constituencies. These roads are not maintained or done by the governors. I can confirm there is not a single tarmac road in Mathare constituency that has been done by the governors. So we must deal with this issue, and I suggest that we summon the CS tomorrow and suspend all our activities and address this issue. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Junet.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to, Mr. Speaker, to bring to the attention of the House matter of concern to the public, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are a country that is governed by the rule of law. And the last 2 days, Mr. Speaker, there was an episode in Nairobi County, Mr. Speaker, where people who could not pay their bills, electricity bills, Mr. Speaker, went ahead and dumped, I think, 1 truck or 2 trucks full of garbage, Mr. Speaker, in front of the premises of Kenya Power and Lighting Company, Mr. Speaker.
Garbage and swill.
Garbage
and swill.
And swill.
You know swill?
I know, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, go on.
Is it sewage? Is it sewage? Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of the House, Mr. Speaker, that is not the way to do things. Mr. Speaker, because Kenya Power and Lighting Company, Mr. Speaker, is a very, very important institution in our country. And is a public listed company. And is a company that is oversighted also by this House. Mr. Speaker, many people have defaulted in paying their bills. It's not only Nairobi County Assembly, Nairobi County government. But Mr. Speaker, if you cannot afford to pay your bills, you negotiate with the person you owe money. You don't use other means to intimidate them and to make them, you know, to make them let you go with their money. Mr. Speaker, I stand here to condemn that matter, Mr. Speaker, because it is uncouth and primitive, and it is an irresponsible way of dealing with an issue. Mr. Speaker, Nairobi City County of late has been doing a good job. They have been trying to clean the city, to remove, kiosks on the roadside that have encroached on the public pavements, Mr. Speaker. But this act they did yesterday, Majority Leader, is unacceptable. How can you, at this time, intimidate a government institution? Even though some of the major shareholders might be private, even some of them are members of this House, I know, of Kenya Power, and I'm told they're getting very good dividends this financial year because Kenya Power is doing very well. I don't know, he's not around now, but he's a serious investor in that place, Mr. Speaker. But that's very good. Even as we aspire to be that. Somebody who's younger than me, that I don't know how we achieve that. I'm really worried, Mr. Speaker. I need to pull up my socks and do something, Mr. Speaker. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, and that could be one of the reasons why we want to have change in the budget committee, maybe. Who knows? But I leave it there for people to decide. It's not in my place to judge anyone, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, the issue that I want to bring to the attention of the House is that the Nairobi County government must apologize and must desist from that kind of act going forward. The governor must apologize to the institution called Kenya Power and Lighting Company and residents of Nairobi in general. Because, Mr. Speaker, we cannot do that. Tomorrow, they will have a problem with NEMA. They will have a problem with any other institution. Is that the way you are going to solve your disputes? So, Mr. Speaker...
What will stop them from dumping garbage and swill outside your gate?
What will stop them? The Speaker is asking me from dumping garbage in front of my house. Mr. Speaker, that's a good question. Because if I don't pay for their services also, if I don't pay their water bills on time, or I don't pay maybe their service charge on time, they can dump garbage also in front of my house. Mr. Speaker, then they tell you, until you pay your dues, we are not going to remove any garbage from in front of your house. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a new phenomena that is, we have never seen it before. So, Mr. Speaker, the governor was elected by Kenyans through the UDA party. Even though we have some symbiotic relationship with ODM, which we are not yet confirming it, because we don't know how I think there is some relationship that is not known, that we need to understand where it is heading to. But Mr. Speaker, in spite of all that, with our symbiotic relationship with the governor, we have to condemn things when they are done wrongly. And that was a wrong act on the part of the Nairobi County government, Mr. Speaker. And we are not doing this we are warning people who might attempt to do that kind of nonsense, Mr. Speaker, because it might not end with them. There are other institutions also who can do that. There are others who can lock up your house, you know, for not paying your dues or something. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to say that act must be condemned and it must not be repeated again, Mr. Speaker. And if it is done, this House now will exercise its mandate of oversight. You know, Mr. Speaker, nothing constitutionally stops us from summoning governors. Yes. Nothing. There is no in the Constitution that writes governors can only be summoned by the Senate. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution says Parliament can summon anyone. Parliament. Yes. And when you say Parliament, it is both the Senate and the National Assembly. Yes. That is Parliament. Parliament can summon anybody in Kenya. Parliament. So under that provision of the Constitution, we will summon governors if they go wayward. They must stick to the rule of law, and they must respect the laws that we have put in place as a House to govern this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ichungwah.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me also join the Honorable Junet Mohammed, Minority Leader, first in condemning that act by the county government of Nairobi, and two, to ask both the county government of Nairobi and the Kenya Power and Lighting Company to get into a negotiation or some sort of dialogue to be able to resolve the issues that are before them on issues touching on pending bills, Honorable Speaker. What we have seen around Stima Plaza, Honorable Speaker, is these are criminal acts. And indeed, I was asking myself last night as I watched on TV, where are the police that should be ensuring there is law and order everywhere in the country? The Inspector General of Police must take decisive action. And it must begin with the drivers who drove those trucks there. Because, Honorable Speaker, it should be very easy for the Inspector General of Police through DCI to extract information as to who were the drivers who dumped there. From the drivers to the people who instructed them. Whether it goes all the way up to the governor, it should not matter. Because we should not entertain criminality in the guise of attempting to collect your debts from public institutions.